Hi, I'm Roderick, Agyekum, pastor, youth development coach. I'm also a business startup person. I work with Christ for Youth International. It's a non-denominational youth ministry that is not only in Ghana but spread across both parts of Africa and then Europe, other parts of the world. I'm also a pastor with Farm Church. Some years ago, I read Dr. Nkrumah, one book of his, and I'll tell you, I've read books and I keep reading books, but that book really challenged me. And what challenged me was the depth of Nkrumah's wisdom or knowledge, his grace in leadership, and how he was able to rally a whole country towards his vision. I believe that God has a purpose for the black man. I say a great purpose for the black man. I thank God for great voices like Dr. Mensa Otabil, who God used to state and restate that in my heart, the value of the black man, that we are called and created at such a time as this to be of value to our generation. The funny thing is that when we're starting, there was not necessarily any special qualification. When we were beginning organization, I was actually first sacked from one place. I was sacked. And when I was sacked, I was so discouraged, And then some of the young people just came around and said, no, one of them said that he has had a dream rather, that I started something that has gone around the world, so we should do it. And these guys were ordinary. I'm telling you, in the sense of ordinary. I'll tell you, even in the team, there was a young one in our mess that was, as at that time, struggling so much with negative habits. Negative habits. He was the youngest among us, but he was part of the team. And we'll never have a meeting without him being there. The inspiration for that is because when you look at Jesus, I always say that when you look at Jesus, he prayed and selected his team. But among the team he selected, one who betrayed him. So you can never be too careful. If Jesus had one person betraying him, Charlie, do your best with what you have, and then God will do the rest. So there's never necessarily any quality. The only and most important thing, let me use this, is teachability. If the person has a heart to be taught, then the person can become anything. Because we hold inside of us a natural ability to learn. So if we have the heart attitude towards learning, then we can become anything.
What were some of the early challenges that you experienced and how did you overcome them?
Okay, one of the early challenges, honestly, we didn't even know what we're doing. Should be told. We didn't know. Yes, the inspiration is in the hearts. But as to whether we were certain, no, I would not want to sit here and say we are so certain. We were one day at a time. So certain times you could see that there was a self-doubt. There was self-doubt. The other thing also is that the people that were around had, they were not perfect. They didn't know much. They were just following. And so sometimes they became a challenge more than, a plus, And then also we had lack of funds. So we don't have all the money we want or desire for, but then there was no fun. But interesting enough, all these challenges also became the platform upon which God helps us to build better attitudes, to be able to deal with greater things, because the God who had called us already has made provision on our way. But what he needed to do was to first build the right attitude towards challenges, which was so we had that, and also we had parents not believing, some parents not believing necessarily in us, and all those things. So they were there, but thanks be to God that they never stopped us. Yeah.
How do you approach innovation, and what inspires new ideas within, your company or companies?
Dr. Miles Monroe of blessed memory says that he mentioned that there are three types of people in the world. There are those that create change. There are those that prepare for change, and there are those that ask what happened. Something like that. I hope I'm right. And that's in his book years ago, Seasons of Change. It just changed me. And he said there's only one thing that's constant in this life: it's change. So because of that, I have at the back of my mind that we need to plan for change, and that is the ground for innovation. The idea that things are not going to be the same, so you have to be ahead of the curve and prepare with new ideas, with how to call it, willingness to try something new, just so that you can beat the change that is coming. And I realized that one of the things that has helped us a lot is constant learning. Once you are constantly learning, somebody said learning is synonymous to living. Once you are constantly learning, it's easier for us to innovate, because you can see and you can tell by the signs that change is coming.
What advice would you give to your younger self or aspiring, entrepreneurs, not just the worldly kind of business, but specifically ministry? What advice would you give?
First, I will tell you that you have to know you are loved. It's first and foremost. It's very important to know that you are loved. Why is that so? In your journey, in developing a business or developing an idea, you'll always be brought to the negotiating table. You meet people sometimes come sharing ideas with you and all those things. Now, if you don't take care, you'll be dragged into somebody else's idea and somebody else's vision because you are hungry. Dr. Mensah said that don't go to a negotiating table hungry. When you're not sure of who you are, other than that, you go and sell your birthright easily. So one of the first formulas I said, look, you have to know you are loved. You have to know that you're of great value. You have to know that the vision that God has called you is a relevant vision. Be certain in yourself. That's the one thing. And honestly, that's one thing I'll tell you. I'll tell my younger self, look, know that God loves you. God cares about you. Your purpose is valuable. And God is with you. So that anytime you are dealing with anybody, you come from a place of love, a place of certainty, and that would help you in your dealings and help you to grow.
How do you balance personal and professional life as a founder?
That is very challenging. Truth be told, I don't think I've been successful at balancing that. You always sometimes find yourself that one is tilting more. Often, when you love a vision is like a child. Once you love the child, we see that even when it's time for the child to be in his own room, your child is with you in your room because you love the child and all that. It becomes very challenging to draw the line. But over time, I'm learning. The reason I'm learning because I realize that if you don't live a balanced life, it will have a toll on even your own health. And I'm coming to that place where I'm realizing the toll on my health slightly because there's no proper divide as to how far should this influence here and how far should. But I trust that by God's grace and you being keen on the need to have a good separation of the two, you know what to do at the right time. But likewise, I'm also learning how to separate and create a good balance between professional and personal life. Most important lesson learned. That will be challenging. Well, one of the, I think that I would say that has really impacted what I do is that he says, don't expect what you have never thought. The mistake is that we think people should know. But as an organizational leader or something, don't do that. Ensure that within your organization, there's a system by which people are trained how your organization should look like, what it should be about, the culture. You must have a systematic way of training. You have to train, you have to communicate the values of your organization, communicate the values of your business. Don't go about expecting what you have not taught it. It doesn't matter what you've learned from school. You must make sure that certain things you are teaching it in your organization. And I believe it will help you. What we foresee for me personally is that I foresee systems I will see why having branch programs all around in every community a young person exists. And our desire is that through our program, we'll raise transformational young leaders everywhere. Leaders that in the near future will impact many of the industries that we have. I mean, the hope is that in the future, not my name, but young leaders, people who have been influenced by the visions will show up everywhere. That, people will say, oh, you have CY, that's it, then you are fine, because they know that the quality of leaders that we are raising. And I also hope, I also want to put it as that We want to, even with time, go into, some years ago I tell people that our competitors actually in our industry is going to be universities. In my life, when I became conscious of faith, walking with God, I went for this camp meeting at Legon. And the man of God, at the latter part of the camp meeting, there was this prophecy that God was going to use the youth, of Ghana or Africa to change their world. And I remember that because that camp was something else. It just changed my life. I was at the back, and the word of prophecy really touched me. The Holy Spirit was sharing with me that the older generation struggle to believe because of their past experiences in Egypt. So God was telling me that check the generation that made. It was a younger generation. God was able to move into the land with the younger people. So I felt God was telling me that all young people have the capacity to believe greater, bigger, and new stuff. And that was the inspiration that was in my heart throughout as I was growing and all, and made me believe that okay, God can use me and God has a purpose for my life. So that's how gradually God led to the startup of CYI. That was one of the moments that woke me up and realized that really my life is really counting for something greater than myself.